Thank you. Good evening, everybody. That clock is now used to be slow. Now it's fast. Might just have a moment, sort things out. Welcome everyone to our meeting for June the 11th. And once I find all the documents, get them in the right order, we'll get going. Sorry, I apologize for this. We start every meeting by acknowledging that we are on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen-speaking people who are represented today by the Songhees and the Esquimalt Nation, and their connection to this land continues to this day. We also remind everyone who's attending that this is video conference live streamed and archived, and anyone who comes to the to speak needs to speak into the microphone as a result, and I'll give you more instructions on that in a minute. I call the meeting to order. And just even before we get onto the agenda, I want to welcome the newest member of our senior management team. And Bruce Anderson has been with us, check the clock there, probably since about 9 o'clock this morning. We welcome him, and he is now the Director of Building and Planning for our district, effective as of today. Bruce is a registered professional planner, member of the Canadian Institute of Planners, and holds a master's degree in planning, regional planning and resource development. He has extensive experience in the field, both publicly and privately. And over the past 10 years, he's worked for the City of Nanaimo in various leaderships, most recently as Manager of Community and Cultural Planning. As I said, extensive experience, and that includes a range of products, multidisciplinary teams, and has provided advisory services internationally through FCM, which is the Canadian Federation of Municipalities. And we welcome him to the team and to our community, and we certainly are very happy that he's accepted our offer to join us. So welcome aboard, Mr. Anderson. We're on the agenda. The first thing that we have are 3 sets of minutes with special meetings May 22nd, Committee of the Whole May 22nd, and Council May 28th.
I have corrections, please.
Okay. So maybe what we could do is we could move it.
Move approval.
And second it. And then you can speak to any changes or stuff you recommend, Councillor Zelko. Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Thank you. Councillor Zelko.
Oh, thank you. For agenda item number 3, Committee of the Whole, in section 2, which I think is on page 2, with respect to the moving of the Sealore sculpture competition location, it says that it was carried, but it did not. The minutes didn't seem to note that I voted against all the positions that were carried. If I could have my vote to not carry that motion.
That was it's either an error or a misunderstanding or a typo. I don't know which.
That'd be great.
But
thank you.
we will correct that. Is that okay, Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Yep. Thank you very much. You've got that. With that change, any other discussion? Any other points with respect to the meetings? If not, I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? And I should just say also for the record, Councillor Kirby is just taken ill late this afternoon, so she's unable to join us. And Councillor Croft, I anticipate, will be joining us 7:30, 8 o'clock. He's incoming from vacation. So I move on to to my remarks. I have three. First of all, it is a great time in Oak Bay for partying, and it was on the weekend of Tea Party. It went very successfully, and I congratulate the Tea Party Society. Put on a wonderful parade, great midway, great games, and just all around a great community event. And so thanks go out to all of the performers and all of the people who participated in that as our community's thanks and our council's thanks. Secondly, I just wanted to let you know that the Police Services Integration Governance Committee working group is continuing to discuss, and that working group is looking at governing integrated police units across the CRD. It's made up of all 13 mayors, and we've had 3 meetings now, 2 more scheduled, working towards some options as to how these integrated units are formed, how they're governed, and how they're dissolved. So that is going very well. And thirdly, this is something I'll mention now, but bring up under new business, and that has to do with the BC Summer Games. There's a new organization in town, which is an offshoot of Victoria Tourism. It's called the Greater Victoria Sports Tourism Commission, headed up by Keith Wells. He's undertaking a bid on behalf of that commission, as well as tourism, for the BC Senior Games in 2021 or 22, or 19, 20, 21. Over 3 years, he's going to make that bid. I have it somewhere in these notes, and I'll come back to it when we have a motion, which I'll suggest under new business. He met with, he invited all the municipalities, University of Victoria, PICE, and a number of other organizations to join him on Friday. And the application for those 3 games is due at the end of the month. He feels very confident, as does Paul Nursey, who's head of tourism, that if we have a good support throughout the community for something like this, we would likely be successful. It has never been held in Victoria, in Greater Victoria. So with this new commission and with the support of Victoria Tourism, there's a very good chance that it's going to be a very successful, robust bid, and we look forward to that. And I'll bring a motion in terms of our support, because that was one of the things that came up during the meeting, the support of all the communities, not only in terms of some financial support, but also facility support. So I'll bring that up under new business, as I said, and that's my remarks. Thank you. We have now, go ahead.
Question for you. Wasn't there another games that was also recently announced and approved in the Oak Bay area in the last week?
That was the French youth games here, the National Francophonie youth games. They'll be in 2022 in, do I got it, 2020? 2020 in July. These games, BC Senior Games, will be in September. Yeah, and the hotel groups are very much behind that. So they had actually, that was one of their considerations, as well as the availability of hotel rooms, which are relatively scarce in July and August, but more plentiful in September. And what they're looking for, and I'll say more about it under new business. All right? So we now have our public participation period, 20 minutes that we allot to this, 3 minutes per speaker. And we would ask you to come to the microphone, remembering you are being recorded. State your name and the municipality where you reside, and then just fill out, there's a little form there, please. Keep your remarks, as I said, within 3 minutes, and address them all through me, please. So, I invite the first speaker. Thank you. And I have a little iPhone that has a dulcet tone that rings. And when you hear that ring, I would ask the speakers just to wrap up whatever sentence they're in with the concluding comments. Perfect. And I'll start the timer when I say welcome, but not that welcome. There'll be another welcome once I hear your name.
My name is Martin Cowden. I reside in Saanich, and I represent the Oak Bay Business Improvement Association.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, Mr. Mayor, for allowing us the opportunity to speak on behalf of concerns in the village community. We're concerned particularly about parking at this time. Approximately 1 year ago, I mailed on behalf of the Oak Bay BIA our concerns about parking, and particularly relating to enforcement on timelines and potentially redevelopment of the property behind what might generally be referred to as along Theatre Lane and behind the Penny Farthing Pub. And at that time in the letter, last June, we said the BIA members' businesses are suggesting now is the time to give consideration for redevelopment of the vacant lots and homes. Their lots are 1538 Monterey Avenue and 1531 Hampshire. And the suggestion was an attractive multi-use space with grassed picnic, dog areas, benches, and meeting places, and bicycle parking as well as vehicle parking would be an enormous help toward keeping the commercial business area healthy, accessible, and viable, and also to be an attractive amenity to the District of Oak Bay. As of June 7th, myself and 3 other business members in the community wrote a letter to Mayor and Council reiterating our interest and concern. We first of all would, from the BIA perspective, would say we very much enjoy the working relationship that we have had, and thanks so much to the staff because they're terrific. We would like to be able to, going forward, to have some form of input into what happens in those properties, let's call it along Theatre Lane, and would just like to make certain that our interests are registered on your agenda going forward, and we'd love the opportunity to participate in whatever happens in the village for its future development. Thank you for hearing us. Any questions?
Thank you very much. No, at this point, no. It's not an interactive session. When we do have interactive sessions called Committee of the Whole, and then at some point bringing that when this issue comes to that forum, then there will be lots of chance to have a discussion. Mr. McNeil.
Yes, my name's Matt McNeil. I reside in Oak Bay.
Welcome.
Thank you. I reside in Oak Bay officially as we're living in the condo above the buildings we own while our house is being rebuilt. So we'll be here for about another 1.5 years. So we've officially moved our address. So we're very excited to be a part of the residential community. And 2 of the undersigned on the letter couldn't be here this evening. They'll be here 2 weeks from tonight to speak to the same issue, hopefully. But I'm going to try and give a Reader's Digest version. There's only one face around this table, and I see your instructions. We are to speak to the chair, and you would be the face that would remember our donation to the parking fund, which allowed us to get our development permit. That being said, that was 20 years ago, and that fund existed prior to that. It was pointed out to me when we chose our location that the house behind was purchased for the same reason as the Monterey house was purchased and subsequently developed. It's just time. It's time. The avenue is busy. The village has been successful by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't know much about your secondary suite issue. I won't chime in on it, but they're getting built regardless of whether you make it official or not. And there's 1 and sometimes 2 cars that end up in front of these houses. They come down the avenue. It's a great avenue. But there are people with the cost of commercial space today who can't afford to take these little spaces because our customers can't park. This isn't 2 years, it's 20 years. And in the past, the previous mayor, with yourself not being accepted, had said, well, it's only 3 years, the election's coming around, maybe we'll get to it after that. Now it's 4. We know that these homes have been leased for 2 years, and we look forward to working with you all, your staff and yourselves, to develop a plan that after that 2 years is up, we can get to parking lots in both those. Move the house on the double lot, sell it off, and pay for both the parking lots to be built. It doesn't seem that difficult to me, but I just sell chicken wings and beer. What do I know? We'd love to be a part of that solution. We really would. It's just time. And we look forward to the tenants taking it over. We understand that everything's been donated, which is kind of nice for the municipality. But we have $950,000 in that parking fund that a lot of people paid into. And it's time to plan to spend it wisely. Yes, we need combustion engine vehicle spaces. We need smart cars. We need electric cars. We need double-stack bike racks like in Amsterdam. We need all that. And we can put a lot of people back there. But we need to continue to invite the residents of this community and others to shop and spend their money in the village to make it viable. It does take a village, I understand, to make a community. So thanks for listening to us tonight, and we look forward to being a part of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. McNeil. Perfect timing on that part, too. And certainly, if I could stop this. There you go. Certainly, that is an important community conversation to have because we all benefit by a vibrant village. We all enjoy it. The more vibrant it is, the more of us go there, and then it gets more vibrant, and then more go. So, but it is important to have a conversation about the future of those, and that's certainly something that council has discussed. So we have now a short-term, an interim solution, but certainly in the medium and the long term, that's when we're going to have that conversation. And they will be important, and we will include BIA, the whole community, the neighbors. Yeah. So thank you very much for continuing to draw that to our attention. Okay, thank you.
May I just ask one question of staff?
Sure. Yep.
Just out of curiosity, and Mr. McNeil said that there was $950,000 in the, I'm assuming it's called the Village Parking Fund. Can you maybe just explain for those of us around the table who weren't here when all this was happening, if that's the correct amount and who actually put that money in and why?
Through your worship, the value in that fund, reserve fund, as at the end of 2017 was $913,000. And I haven't been able to find a lot of information. It goes back a long ways, but it would appear that it's mostly businesses that have contributed.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, Isabella Lee, Oak Bay.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm here to speak to urge the council to vote in favor of a motion brought forward today by Mayor Neil Johnson. I think it's so important that you vote in favor for this motion because it enables local governments to take the fee levy, the speculation tax, and make it into a levy and make it into a fund for reinvesting in non-market housing. And I think that's so important that Oak Bay is part of the housing solution. But I think you need to take great into consideration and ask yourself the question how this will actually be implemented, because we don't want to be the municipality that isn't actually trying to make more affordable housing for the people around us. This shouldn't allow us to not be part of the speculation tax. We need to make sure that Oak Bay is part of the solution. So although I think this motion is a great start, I think we also need to, I urge the council also to ask questions about what happens after this motion and the next steps if it is passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lee. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? No one else. All right. Thank you very much. We're now going to move to the next item on our agenda. That was item number 6. We have statement of financial information as item number 7. This is a requirement that we receive these report and must be prepared annually and submitted to the province by the 30th of June. Ms. Carter, acting with one of her many hats, in this case here, Director of Financial Services, prepared this particular report. So could you give us an overview of the report and how it comes to be made and why we do this annually? And I think the answer is because we're required to do it, but otherwise we probably would have anyway. So, Ms. Carter.
So, Your Worship, yes, we are required to do this through legislation annually and provide it to the province. So you'll see a similar report in previous years. And essentially it's consistent with our audited financial statements, and it reports on things like employees' income over a certain threshold, as well as suppliers and vendors over a certain threshold. and then we reconcile that with our financial statements. I do need to point out, however, we do have one minor amendment to the report.
Thank you.
And that is under the schedule showing the payments made for the provision of goods or services.
Okay, if you can just tell us what page that is. We have 13 pages. What page of 13?
It's approximately page 7.
Okay. That's long-term debt on our iPad. Right. It looks like it's page 10 of 13. It's headed suppliers who received aggregate payments exceeding 25,000.
That's correct.
All right. Okay. So what's the change there, please?
So near the bottom of that report, there was a payment showing to Walton Ross.
You have more than 3 minutes, by the way. So don't have to worry about that. Go ahead. Right. Yes. Go ahead.
So that payment actually needs to be reallocated to the next page under the, it's reconciled under the accruals. This was actually for a refund for engineering services, so it's just reported in the wrong area of the report.
So it's the one called Walton Ross, $28,880.
That's correct.
And so we take that out of there if we receive these, and we'll put it on the next page, which will be 12 of 13, called Payments to Suppliers for Grants and Contributions.
That's correct,
Alrighty.
under the accruals.
All right, thank you. Okay, anything else you want to draw to our attention?
At this point, I don't think so. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Not much different. Actually, there is one thing that is slightly different from previous years. We did seek clarification from the province on a few items this year, and one of them was the council remuneration. You may notice that it shows the full amount, whereas previous years it did not show the allowance portion.
I see, okay. So it's just a little more information. And your recommendation is we approve the financial statement of financial information for the year ended December 31st, 2017.
I'll make that motion
Moved.
And it should be with that amendment.
with that.
With the amendment, yes, I think that's understood, yep.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Councillor Murdoch, please.
Thank you, through your chair. I had one other question along with the Walton Ross piece. Thank you for moving that. Just the Parkland refining. Just curious what that is. Is that fuel for our fleet? Is that?
Yes, through your worship, that's what it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. Just want to place some transparency. I noticed that other reports that we have to provide to the province, we give the public an opportunity to speak or to ask questions. And I'm hoping that, from a transparency and communication place, we might afford that opportunity today, if anyone in the public chooses to speak.
It's not been the practice for receiving this kind of report. It has been the practice and the requirement to have it any time we're passing financial bylaws. So it wouldn't be tonight. So thank you.
And I do also notice for the annual report, for example. If anyone has any questions about this, is the expectation that they would ask at the time of the annual report, or they would have to wait till next year for the financial statements? So if someone has any questions about this, when could they ask?
Well, certainly in terms of our public participation, they could make their views known on one thing or another. But there is, in terms of, these are kind of standard accounting type of reports. So really it is for the next year when we go and we look at our salaries, we look at our expenditures, and when we're actually dishing the money out, so to speak. So that's always been the tradition. So thank you very much for bringing that up. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Asphalt Resurfacing and Miscellaneous Concrete Program Tender Award. And this is a report under number 8 from Ms. Costin, our Deputy Director of Financial Services, and there's a recommendation for issuing some contracts. In particular, this is Asphalt Resurfacing and Miscellaneous Concrete Program be issued to Island Asphalt Company in accordance with the tender submission. In this case, it's $675,625. Ms. Costin, did you want to add anything to your report in terms of the process of tendering? Oh, and you pointed down the line to Mr. Brozak, is it? Yeah. Okay, Mr. Brozak, did you want to add anything to the report in terms of what the process has been?
Yes, so the tender went out for 2 weeks. It will cover asphalt milling and filling, overlaying, replacing concrete curbs, gutters, sidewalks. The two companies, we've worked with both of them and they both do good work. Island Asphalt was the low bid and we've been happy with their work in the past.
Thank you very much. Okay, good. We have a motion to recommend, or along the lines of the recommendation?
I'll move
Moved,
the
seconded.
recommendation.
Discussion, or any, yes, go ahead, Councillor Murdoch, please.
I just want to confirm in this process I think I understand the wording of the report. The specifics that were allocated for this for 675, we obviously allocated more money than this in the budget. So this includes a piecemeal account. We can ramp that up and actually spend the money allocated to do additional road work to use up the funds. Just want to confirm that is true.
Yes, definitely. It's a unit rate tender, so we got really good unit rate prices back, so we will spend to the maximum of our budgets.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further points, discussions? If not, call the questions to award the contract. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. We next go to number 9, which is a appointment of the Deputy Chief Election Officer. We have a report here from the Chief Election Officer, Ms. Hopkins, making a recommendation that we appoint Victoria McKean as the Deputy Chief Election Officer. Is there anything you wish to add to your report, Ms. Hopkins, in your role as Chief Election Officer?
Thanks, Your Worship. No, I think it's spelled out in the report just that we had originally appointed Warren Jones as our Deputy Chief Election Officer, and now that we've got Victoria with us on board, we'd like to put her in that position now.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Go ahead on questions, please, Councillor Zalko.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to staff. I didn't see any detail about this person. I was wondering if it's possible to know something about her to the extent that you can, please.
So Victoria has come on board as a contractor to assist in executing this election, and she is a highly capable person who has done a lot of good work already. She recently did some observation. It's international elections observation in Italy, which has been really valuable in helping me. She's a UVic grad, poli-sci and history, so she's been doing, as I said, a lot of great work.
Thank you very much. Did you want to add something, Mr. Jones?
I'm not sure. Just
Well, it sounds like you're about to.
just want to, I guess, let people know that we are doing things a little bit differently for the election this year. We're doing more of this kind of in-house, and so that's the reason why we've made this change and appointed somebody much more capable than I to act in that capacity.
That we can't conceive of that, Mr. Jones, really. Very good. So we need a motion to make the appointment. I don't think we have one on the floor yet. Moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? I see none opposed. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Advisory Commission minutes, and these were from April the 3rd. I think there was the May meeting was canceled, as I can recall. So,
Move receipt.
okay. So
Second.
moved to receive the minutes. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Zalko, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'm so pleased to see in the minutes there was in old business in the follow-up from the joint APC Council discussion, there was discussion about the what's it called? I can't find the word here. The guidelines and the various sort of sheets that we come up with to make sure that things are moving along. I presume that means it's going to be presented to council soon. I know one of the things we're still waiting to have presented to council is the final version of the manual. Is it possible to get from council, from staff, an idea of when that manual will be presented to us for
Now,
review.
typically, we would ask the director of planning, but given he's only been here, what did we say, 9 hours? We're going to see if Ms. Jensen can help us with that.
The Advisory Planning Commission was actually discussing this at their last meeting just a few days ago, and so they're going to do kind of a, I'm going to call it a test run with the procedures checklist that we've been developing at their next meeting, so I would anticipate bringing it forward after that.
Thank you. For the checklist was what I was referring to. Thank you. That's great.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing no questions, we have a motion on the floor, I think. Do we do? Yep. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed to receive the minutes. Thank you. We have item number 11, the advisory design panel, and these were from the May minutes.
Move receipt.
Second.
Moved, seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. We have a couple of items of
Move
correspondence.
receipt of correspondence.
Second.
Okay, regarding things that we're going to do a little later. Discussion on receipt. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed to receive the correspondence. New business. Okay, so this is under new business. The new business I wanted to bring up was what I had alluded to at the outset, and just hand out some documents, I think, which you already have. And I'll give you a little background. This has to do with the, I think we called them in those days, the 55-plus senior games. And I think they're now called the BC Senior Games. Be that as it may, it's the same group. You may recall that we were asked in 2015 to endorse a proposal, and it was a very last-minute proposal put together by, I think at that time, I think it was the city in conjunction with another group. That at that time, we discussed it. We supported the bid to host it in the Greater Victoria area, and then we agreed in principle we would consider contributing $10,000 in the year that it was to be held, which was proposed for 2017. Of course, that didn't come about. We then have this bid that I alluded to earlier, the Greater Victoria Sports Tourism Commission, which you also have a document. Very exciting possibility. 4,000 registered from across British Columbia in the 55-plus range. And the view was at about the financial contribution would be in the area of $2,000 to $3,000 per community, although Victoria and Saanich, I think, would be expected to put in more than that. And then, of course, also some in-kind, up to $30,000 of in-kind contribution, and that would be providing facilities free of charge. In our case, perhaps the Lawn Bowling Club, part of our recreation centers for this. The same, I visited, well, that meeting I attended with Mr. Ray Herman, our Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture. He was very keen for this and to assist the bid in, I got the dates in front of me now, 2020, 2021, or 2022. So they're put on every year, but we would bid for one of those three in conjunction. We wouldn't bid, I'm sorry, the commission would bid. And some very preliminary thoughts on his part as to how we could accommodate some of the in-kind. We could perhaps have table tennis at the Henderson Recreation Center, women's ice hockey. We could provide, and the reason it was women's rather than men's, I think men's, was 3 sheets of ice, and women's was just the one, and we just have the one. There was a number of sporting events, which sounded a lot like card games. Bridge, cribbage, and whist are part of the senior games, potentially. The host community chooses at least 20, 8 core ones, but some of these card games, of course, we could accommodate in Monterey Recreation Center, and of course I mentioned the Lawn Bowling Club. So there may be others that we could contribute part of. For instance, if we're able to, if someone is picking up the road cycling, we might be able to assist with opening or closing our roads for those events. And golf, of course, we're blessed with 2 of BC's and certainly Canada's best golf courses. So the proposal that I have, I'm going to suggest, is that we pass a motion which is very similar to the one that we did in 2015, and that's in 3 parts. So the following motion, I would propose that Oak Bay support the Greater Victoria Sports Tourism Commission bid for the BC Senior Games for either 2020, 2021, or 2022. And secondly, that if the BC Senior Games bid is successful, Oak Bay pledge a financial support not to exceed $5,000. And then finally, that if the Senior Game bid is successful, Oak Bay pledge to provide available and suitable venues for the BC Senior Games.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you. Could you explain, as a mover, the intent of the third item and how that will be bounded? Like, could they, with the wording chosen in the motion, it sounds like it's sort of open-ended.
Yes.
As opposed to saying, maybe wording along the lines around, to the value of a certain amount, say $5,000 to $10,000. I'm not quite sure about it being open-ended.
Yeah, and the reason it was like this, and you're quite right, it's very loose, it's very open-ended. And it really depends on the games that are chosen to be played. In other words, if they don't, I think men's and women's hockey, I think, are a must. So that's certainly possible. I didn't ask Mr. Hermans to put a number on that. I think they're more interested in are they available, and you could see here, first of all, are they suitable? Because some of the like the table tennis and the badminton needs a certain size, and it's not quite clear as to exactly what size would be suitable. But I put in the word available just so we don't overcommit, in the sense that that it may well be that during that September period we've agreed to hold a some kind of hockey tournament in the arena. So to offer it now, I think, is significantly premature, but to offer our intent that we will work with the commission to find available space, and I'm sure we will. Typically, the Lawn Bowling Club, for instance, is available that time of year, but they may have a special tournament. We don't know. And it's a little too far out at this point. So that's why I was left purposely vague, but showing essentially support in principle of our facilities. Yep, go ahead,
So
Councillor
following
Zelka.
up, I thank you for that clarification, and I'll be voting in favor of the amendment. And yet, at the same time, I am shocked that my age allows me to participate in these games. Oh well, thank you.
What kind of cribbage player are you? You might be able to qualify. You never know. And the value of this to tourism is in the millions of dollars, because these athletes pay for their own hotels. They're not sponsored in that way. They pay a relatively small registration fee to participate. But when they come here, they register on Thursday, Friday. The games are Saturday, Sunday. And many come early or stay late. And they are of an age and probably a demographic where they want to enjoy themselves. So that's why there's no billeting with families in that sense. The hotels are available. We certainly, by participating, we also then include the Oak Bay Beach Hotel in the list of available hotels that people can stay at. So it is a great opportunity to show off the Greater Victoria area, and this commission that was newly formed, I think it's been about a month. One of their roles is to look after multi-event games. And I know they're going to be looking forward to working with the Francophone games, for instance. They want to support that. There's all kinds of other games that they're going to go after in a very positive fashion. And it'll be great benefit for our businesses and tourism in general. So, welcome, Councillor Croft. We have a motion on the floor.
Oh, thank you.
The one that I sent around in terms of the senior games, supporting in the supporting the bid in principle, either 2022, 2021, or 2020. Yep, those three. And upwards to 5,000 and available in suitable venues. Okay, further discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. So they were in a rush to get this, so perhaps tomorrow we could get something out. And I think we probably will be the first community to actually show support, because I think Saanich was going to have it next week. So this is, they're very appreciative of this kind of support. They told us they would be. Now, report from the Capital Regional District. There wasn't any meeting. There's one coming up this Wednesday. Other verbal reports, please, under 13. Yes, Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I attended the first AVICC executive meeting as a new director all day on Saturday. Of note, the two things that I think we looked at me reporting back on was the employer health tax. So UBCM will be following up and asking for a delay until they have had an opportunity to provide feedback to the province. And AVICC will also send a letter to the province as well, as far as the employer health tax goes. As far as the, sorry, did you have a question? No?
No, actually, that
And as
was
far
just a
as,
kind of a quiet, good.
okay, good.
Good, thank you.
As far as the speculation tax goes, it doesn't appear that there was a consensus from the AVICC members about the tax, making it difficult for the executive to actually advocate for an AVICC position. So therefore, it's determined that no action would be taken until after UBCM, and we see what UBCM does.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other verbal reports? Councillor Zelko?
Thank you very much, Chair. Wanted to report out from the Oak Bay Emergency Program. Participated greatly in the Vancouver Island Emergency Preparedness Conference. That was this last weekend at the University of Victoria, June 8th, 9th, and 10th. And it was very well attended from most of the local governments and First Nations in southern Vancouver Island. And it was really great to see so many Oak Bay volunteers helping to keep this important conference moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other reports from any other? Okay. I see. You're not sure? Okay, go ahead.
I'll just report, because that hasn't
Councillor
happened
Murdoch?
yet, but just a few things. The Heritage Conservation Area Working Group continues to work. We're just finalizing people's availability, public input towards the end of this month. And the Heritage Commission is undertaking a revised look at their strategic plan and priorities, and so that'll be happening this week as well. So I'll have some reports to bring back come next council.
Thank you very much. No other new reports. We go on to item 14.
I do have an update.
Another update to
Just a couple of things. Don't forget that the art tour is happening on Thursday. And the Ride Don't Hide, we don't have another opportunity to talk about Ride Don't Hide. I don't think it happens
the 24th.
The 24th, so we don't have another council meeting before then, do we?
No, we have a committee of the whole. You're right. So
Committee
the
of the whole.
council meeting is the following
Right.
day,
Yeah.
25th.
Yeah. So Ride Don't Hide, don't forget to register and for that event. And Sausage Fest is coming up. And also, I will be gone in Newfoundland, so don't forget also that on the 29th of June, there will be a Canada Day celebration on the front lawn of Municipal Hall, and also music in the park that night at Willows Beach.
This is going to be a very enjoyable summer. Lots of music, lots of art, and lots of activities. So we thank the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Commission, of which you are liaison for organizing all of that. All right. Let's go on to number 14. This is the speculation tax issue that I raised. I sent around an updated version, which is the one you see, and I've updated the update. And if I can just pass these around, there's only it's a kind of a administrative change to the description of it. It was originally called, the proposed provincial speculation tax. Now, in order to line it up with what the ask is, I've titled it Local Government Vacancy Levy, but other than that, what's on the agenda has no change at all. So what I'm going to be asking is that I'm going to read this, and then I'll ask someone to move and second it, and then we can have that discussion. So, whereas vacant residential properties are not in the best interests of BC communities, and whereas local governments are best placed to determine the nature and extent of the adverse impact of vacant residential properties and to administer exemptions based on local needs, and whereas a levy administered and retained by the local government on vacant residential properties can can be a way to encourage the availability of more rental accommodations. And the final whereas revenues from such a levy on vacant residential properties would assist a local government directly or through regional pooling to create and encourage non-market housing. Be it therefore be it resolved that UBCM urge the province modify the approach in the current proposed speculation tax to empower local governments to collect a levy on vacant residential properties and to require local governments that choose to impose such a levy to invest the revenues in non-market housing. So if someone's willing to move that.
Move. Second.
Moved and seconded. So the one thing I could have added, and I thought in retrospect I didn't want to change it this afternoon when it occurred to me it should have been in there, and that is the fact that the province, quite some time ago, a number of years ago, empowered the City of Vancouver to impose a local government vacancy levy. But they were the only community to be so empowered, and the amendments were made provincially or to the Vancouver Charter, which governs them, whereas local government and the community charter governs us. So in essence, this is really asking for the government to consider the same approach as was taken in Vancouver, which I understand has been successful. I don't think it's been completely evaluated, but certainly it has raised an amount of $30 million in last year alone. And so in that way, perhaps one can say it has success. But as I put out here in the beginning, it's much better to have this kind of decisions made at the local level. We are the ones that know if there's a problem in our community. We are the ones that would know if a vacancy levy would deal with those problems, and if so, how. And there may well be exemptions from that that are particularly germane to a local community. So this is what this is attempting to do, in essence, is kind of create a partnership with the provincial government. And we know it's important to avoid vacant homes because we do know that we do accept that there's a housing crisis right across British Columbia and in many parts of British Columbia, and we do have a responsibility to do what we can to deal with that. So that acknowledges, this particular motion acknowledges that. So what better way than for a local government to partner through empowerment with the provincial government and keeping that money locally and not having it go into any kind of formal general revenue. So with that then, I would invite any other discussion. Councillor, okay. Did you want to go first or? Doesn't matter. Well, everyone's going to have a say, so I don't think the order matters that much. Go ahead, Councillor Murdoch.
Sure, and through, this is a question just on the motion itself. It's not entirely clear from the wording. This is a motion to take to UBCM conference for the assembly there. So it's not to direct, not to ask the UBCM executive to make this action. It'll be following that. If it passes at the UBCM.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
So so this is it. I did it in accordance with their format. They require a certain format, a title, a name at the top, and as you can see here, that UBCM urged the government. So UBCM not as an executive, but as a whole. So this presumably would be admitted for discussions at the conference in September. These have to be in to UBC by the end of the month to be considered by. They have a resolutions committee, and my understanding is there's a number of resolutions already sent to them along. I mean, not necessarily along these lines. I think there were some from other communities, particularly from the Okanagan, that have a strong view on this. So they've sent theirs in. It may well be the executive chooses one or, puts some together as they have in the past. And so they don't all come as a kind of a buckshot to the floor. Okay.
That's it. I'm supportive of the intention. Anything that I think sort of asks the province to think seriously about how the speculation tax is implemented and to tackle vacancies is a positive thing. I think it probably would have been maybe stronger with the motion to write a letter just in support of them rethinking things, but I certainly appreciate that it's good to have this, and it'll hopefully not be too late in September since they've put in their budget and had it in their taxes for January already. It seems unlikely, but I'm certainly hopeful that this will have some impact. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nate, please, and then Councillor Zilko.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this forward. I fully agree with the implementation, actually, of a vacancy tax. They call it a speculation tax. The province does that disincentivizes permanent and continuous, ongoing vacant houses. But what I've been troubled with about the existing speculation tax and the way the province rolled that out was that it's just its testimony is in all the pushback coming from the various communities that it's too blunt of a tool, and it doesn't allow the local communities to address the housing needs specific to their community. And if you look across the island where this is being rolled out, each small community, even with the CRD, has very different kinds of housing needs. So if the province were to give local government the autonomy and, as you say, the empowerment to exercise this levy, we could target and set up exemptions as they suit our specific community. And then address the nature of the affordability issues that exist in our community, which are of a different nature than they are in other communities. So I think this is a good way to go. To Councillor Murdoch's point that he'd prefer that a letter be rolled out, I don't know how that would hurt the resolution if you added that, say that you want to do a letter too, if you want to speak to that. I'm not bothered by that, to have it to go to two places. I don't know how others at the table feel, but I'm not opposed to that.
Well, it would be a simple matter of just sending, we'll send this, if it passes, it'll go to UBCM and we'll just CC the minister. So the minister has a heads up as to what we're asking. I don't think we even need a motion on that. Mr. Jones, we could just do that?
Your Worship, absolutely.
As a courtesy thing, yep. The Premier, the Minister, okay? Councillor Zalko, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. And thank you, Mayor Jensen, for bringing this motion forward. I'm in general in favor with the intent that's being brought forward. I like the fact that the speculation tax is being renamed to something closer to what it really truly is, which is a vacancy levy. So I like that aspect of it. But I do have a few concerns. And my concerns is that this is a wonderful Canadian approach which kind of tries to satisfy everybody. And that's my concern about this, because you use some really interesting words as the author of the motion, and I'll make reference to them. The proposed speculation tax, it's going to empower local governments to collect a levy. That sounds great. On vacant residential properties, good, that speaks to the intent, and to require local governments that choose to impose such a levy. Now that's the modifier. The choose to impose a local levy is the problem I've got, what I have a problem with, because essentially, not only does it enable, authorize the local government to basically do all the work, it also allows us to do absolutely nothing. And one of the things I've noticed at the local level is that I guess because of our election cycles and because we know all of our neighbors and we know already in terms of some of the pressures that are being applied to us at the local level in terms of some of the folks who will be affected by this, should it get passed at the provincial level, I should say, that I imagine at the local level it's going to be kind of hard to maintain, my term, to maintain a backbone, and to see that this actually gets passed and gets implemented in this district. And that's why, for that reason, I'm going to propose an amendment, which will actually, from my perspective, strengthen the motion and ideally try to actually achieve the whereas clauses. Because your whereas clauses are fabulous. So the motion, the amendment I'm going to propose, and hopefully someone will support me, is the word empower, I'd like to replace with the word require. So it will read, therefore be it resolved that UBCM urge the province to modify the approach of the current proposed speculation tax to require local governments to collect a levy on vacant residential properties. That's the first change. The second change I propose is to strike the words that choose to impose such a levy. And with that stricken from the motion, this basically, the provincial work will essentially be transferred to the local level and will have to do it. And will also have the shield or the protection saying basically provincial law made us do it, we have to do it. And we have a chance to actually achieve the province-wide objective, which is to see that vacant residential properties get pressed into service.
Okay.
So
Just
essentially it would be striking
Yep.
that choose to impose such a levy. So the wording would finally say, the final wording, therefore be it resolved that UBCM urges the province modify the approach of the current proposed speculation tax to require local governments to collect a levy on vacant residential properties and to require local governments to invest the revenue in non-market housing.
Okay, just before anyone seconds that, I have to decide whether or not there is Robert's rules that you say you can't amend a motion. I'm going to look for Mr. Jones's assistance here. Amend a motion to take it in a completely different direction. You can certainly modify it with amendments, but you can't undermine it to the extent that it no longer is the motion, if I can call it that way, okay? So, because then what the proper procedure is to defeat the motion and then bring a new one with those words, okay? New one in a completely different direction. This is a little bit close to the line. Mr. Jones, have you got some thoughts on that?
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
I'm not sorry to put you on the spot, by the way.
You're right, that is very close to the line. And as staff, I think we'd throw this back to council to determine if, in fact, that changes the intent of the resolution, changing empower to require. And that's really up to you. It would be difficult for staff to kind of make that judgment for you.
Okay, fair enough. But the principle, if it changes if it eliminates the intent and takes in a different directions, it's out of order.
Correct.
Okay, so it really is. I think the proper procedure would be just to defeat the motion and then bring another motion.
A point of procedure, Chair. This is your motion. You are in conflict of interest. I ask that you relinquish the chair if we're going to continue.
No, I'm not going to do that. It's not a conflict of interest. In fact, the community charter local government gives the power to a mayor to propose a motion. And surely it wouldn't give that power if exercising that power would put the mayor into conflict. That just doesn't make any sense. So there is the power of the mayor to put it. As it turns out, technically, the motion was not moved by me, but I do take responsibility for it. So number one, I reject your suggestion of recusal. And number two, I will also rule your amendment out of order. Okay, thank you.
I object, and
Okay,
I ask
so
that
you
it
challenge
be.
the chair.
I wish to challenge the chair,
Okay.
and I wish it to be
That-
put to a vote. Thank you.
So the next process then is the challenge. The chair has been challenged on this, and the question is it in the positive, Mr. All in favor of supporting the chair?
Your Worship, the resolution would be, shall the chair be sustained?
Shall the chair be sustained? Okay, so that's now the resolution. And no discussion. All in favor? To sustain the ruling.
Sorry,
I called it out of order.
Right.
Okay?
Support you.
Okay. And again, yeah, it is a little bit convoluted. So that's why, okay, I'm glad. So if you vote in favor of this motion, you're sustaining my ruling and it means that the amendment is out of order. Okay? If you defeat this, then you go back in the amendment, and the amendment is on the floor as a mover. It'll still have to be seconded. Okay? So, shall the mayor be sustained? The ruling of the mayor be sustained. All in favor? Opposed? 2 opposed. Thank you. So it is sustained. Thank you. Now, we are on the main motion. Go ahead.
If I could continue, please, then. So I will be voting against this motion, as I find it wishy-washy and essentially allows us enough wiggle room that we wouldn't be required to do anything. And we would be, unfortunately, defeating everything that's in the whereas clauses as a result. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other points people want to make? Okay, so I'll just, yes, no? I'll just address that point in terms of the choice. Right now, the proposal is to impose this on certain select areas. So right now, someone living in, let's say, Prince George, which is not in one of those areas, would not have the power, if they feel in their community, to levy a vacancy tax. They wouldn't have that power. And they're not in the areas. The areas are, broadly speaking, parts of the island, the Lower Mainland, and the Okanagan. The rest of the province is exempt from this, from these kind of vacancy rules. This one here, in fact, widens that scope and allows everyone the ability to make that decision. So I would, in fact, argue this is a better approach where we're all treated equal to Vancouver. All right. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Zelka opposed. Thank you very much. And I appreciate what you were trying to get at, Councillor Zelka, but it's passed. Well, it's that is French, indeed. Okay, thank you very much. And now we go on to number 15, which is the development variance permit. There is a resolution notice for 195 Sunny Lane. And is the applicant here? Hello, hi. So what we're going to do is we'll move the motion. It has gone out for notice.
I'll move the resolution.
It has been discussed at Committee of the Whole. And let's see if there's any questions for the applicants. Okay, are there any questions, first of all, for the applicants? Okay. Does anyone here from the public wish to address us on this issue? Okay, seeing no questions and no one wishes to address us, the motion is live on the floor. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed? All the best with that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Development variance permit for 3000 Valdez. Again, this is a similar process. This has gone out to notification, Ms. Jensen. It's been discussed at Committee of the Whole. As the applicant here, please. Hello. And you're sitting there wondering, I hope yours is going to go like that too, right? Wait for it, so to speak. So let's first of all move and second it, please, the motion.
The resolution.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. It's on the floor. Now when the applicant comes back, is there any questions for the applicant, by the way? Okay, there's no questions for you in any event. Okay. So that's good. Anyone wish to address us on this issue? Seeing none, I bring it back to our table. Discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Thank you very much. All the best with that. Development variance permit, 3125 Uplands is the applicant here. Hello. Hi, you're hoping for the same thing, I
Move
bet?
the resolution.
And the same thing applies to you. Now, was this one that went also out for variance? Yes. Okay. Any questions for the applicant? No questions. Anyone here wish to address us on that issue? Seeing no one come forward, to bring it back here. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed? And all the best to you with that project. Traffic control order for Granite, Mitchell, and Fowl Bay. Mr. Haran is here. I know that this was this report, I think, came out of your office, done by Mr. Is this Mr. Ding's report? I can't remember now, sorry.
Yes, it is your.
Okay, but you're here to answer any questions. You may remember some time ago we asked that after the completion of the work project or the development project at the corner of Foul Bay and Oak Bay Avenue that had brought in a lot of trucks. Once that was over, trucks related to the construction, we looked at this, and this is the result of that evaluation. And there's a number of 2-hour zones. Mr. Haran, can you just give us very high-level thinking as to why these proposals were and what they were aimed at?
Yes, Your Worship. The original request from some of the residents was for resident-only parking, which we did not support. What we did observe, however, was that there were, especially during the week, long-term parkers. So to encourage movement of cars rather than permanent parking throughout the day, we proposed the Monday to Friday restrictions on the parking hours.
All right. I know there was a concern of one neighbor, not a neighbor, sorry, a resident who was concerned about residents only, but that's not what's being proposed here.
That's correct, Your Worship.
And the rules are that an adjoining owner can get a permit, a sticker, which allows that particular house owner who's adjacent to an area to exceed the 2-hour limit, correct?
I would have to check with about those regulations, Your Worship.
Okay. That's what it is on Oliver where I live. That's how come I know it. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Haran about this proposal? None? Okay. And what the staff are looking for is a resolution to approve this traffic control
I'll make
order.
that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Go ahead.
To staff,
Okay.
if you're
Yep, go ahead.
through your chair to Mr. Haran. So you said you're going to monitor the situation, and how will council hear about that monitoring effort and when?
Through Your Worship, this will be very similar to, I guess the best way is I'm saying that we're going to monitor it and in a few months after the change is made, observe at some of the blocks that are adjacent to this area to see what impact there is. And I guess the part of the best way to know is that as residents raise their concerns, it's typically when there's a group of residents that say we have an issue that really signals to us that there's something that we have to do to address the concern.
So you're kind of encouraging active involvement of the residents around that area to stay monitoring. Would that be right?
Through the chair, we always appreciate the feedback of the residents, and I don't say that tongue-in-cheek. I'm quite sincere. We observe traffic patterns. We observe issues. We have a list of transportation-related projects and concerns and ideas throughout the whole district, and we always incorporate public feedback, and whether it's through a formal engagement process or through informal, to try to prioritize what we think needs to be done first.
Thank you, Mr. Haran.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Councillor Zelko, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I guess this would actually be a question through you to staff as well. It's relating to the question to the email that came in from the treasurer of the Rotary Club, Ms. Peggs, who raised a very interesting point around residential parking, as she refers to as a residential parking creep. As we look to densify Oak Bay and make the public space smaller and smaller, it's just going to push cars further and further and make things more difficult. And then, of course, when we bring in secondary suites where there's more than one car and the car has to now be out front, it's going to make it even more difficult for the business folks, as referenced at the beginning of this meeting with the Oak Bay Business Association, who brought forward some of their concerns. If we close off more of this street to resident-only parking, it's just going to get worse and worse. The question through you, Chair, to staff is, when should we start considering, and should we start considering building some kind of a parking facility, such as Victoria downtown already has?
Your worship, maybe I'll take that one, and I
Thank you.
presume some of that might be rhetorical. And really, I think as staff, we recognize that there are parking challenges in Oak Bay, and for some people that's a good thing, and for some people that's a bad thing. And that's a conversation that I think needs to happen in the community. We've not heard from council that there is an interest in a parking structure in Oak Bay. If that's a priority, then that would certainly be something that council could raise in the next priority setting session.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Just to follow up, I did not mean for it to come across as tongue-in-cheek. You know, some folks who come from away, who are not Oak Bay residents, look at our parking problems and maybe they laugh because other places have such more pressing parking problems than I think certainly in the near term, medium term we'll ever have. And yet for Oak Bay residents, it's a real problem and it's a real change, and it's part of that continuing taking over of the public space and creeping and turning it into essentially a legislative space, a space with a permit. And it's going to involve, it's just another area where residents are being asked to change. So at an appropriate time, I will be putting forward a suggestion for our priorities setting sessions to consider maybe a parking structure. Since we have such, from an Oak Bay perspective, such large parking issues such as around Oak Bay High and now downtown Oak Bay. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to make it clear that what I thought the letter writer was talking about was something a little bit different than we've actually proposing here. And what she was referring to, particularly not too far from where she lives, there are a number of Victoria streets that have residential only parking. In other words, you have to have lived on that block to park there at all. We have some of that here, but not very much. And it's not been the policy of council over the last few years to add to residential only parking. So we have it, for instance, on Epworth and Florence, and that had to do with parking overflow from St. Patrick's Church. We have it on some parts up near the University of Victoria to deal with University of Victoria students encroaching on. But those are isolated areas. What we have been doing over the years, and I suspect that's what Mr. Horan followed, was a time limit. So to turn parking spaces over. We have it on the avenue. We have it on other parts adjoining the avenue. So for instance, it's on my street. What we had missed over the years was this Mitchell granted area. And it obviously became an issue there for locals that was being taken by employees who maybe worked at, let's say, one of the stores just across the boundary, that they would park there all day. It aims at turning it over. And so it's a marked difference between what I thought Ms. Peggs was getting at and what we're actually doing tonight. It's a 2-hour. So she could come and park on my street for 2 hours. She could park on Mitchell for 2 hours, which what I hear her, and actually I spoke to her about this, what I hear her say, and I read what she says, is it's places she can't park at all. That's what upsets her. And there's some of that right around Pemberton Park, as an example. A park that's used by people from all over, but they can't park right immediately to it because of residential only. So we have a 2-hour residential recommendation. We thank the engineering staff. I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. And thanks for that. And I know I see at least one resident from that area, and hopefully that's something that will work out. And certainly your feedback and the feedback of your neighbors over the next year or so would be valuable to hear, is this working or not working? But over the next year, not tonight.
Well, I was just going to say, does the commissioners communicate with the Department of Engineering, because they're the ones that give the tickets.
Yep.
But
but if they don't know that they're giving the tickets, then it's a bit moot.
Mr. Jones will take care of that. He looks after that part of the commissioner's role. And in fact, for the first time in quite some time, I saw them chalking tires right outside of Starbucks. Not that there's ever a 2-hour issue unless someone's dragging it out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go next to the next item on the agenda. That is item 19 we skip. It's a memo to us, and this is for adoption. And this is the parks, beaches, the appliances that can be used on the beaches. We have a letter from Mr. McCrae. This is for adoption, so we've had first, second, and third reading.
Move adoption 4712.
Okay. Okay. Now, discussion? Yes, go ahead, please.
Can we please hurry up and finish this meeting so I can go have a fire on the beach tonight?
Hey, you got till 10.
I know, I want to go.
How long does it take to cook a hot dog, for goodness? Okay, yes, I will. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. The next one is a bylaw report that has to do with the chief election officer report.
Move bylaw number 4713.
Okay, we get the readings. I think we're allowed to give 3 readings on here, first, second, and third. Yes, thank you very much. Discussion. It's been seconded, yes? Did you hear a second? Yep, thank you. Discussion. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Murdoch, please.
So, first, second, third, do we do the discussion at the second reading, or is this something that we're doing?
We'll do it at the third reading, yep. We'll do it all at once. Yep, so now.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Because I actually have some questions on this. And I just, I read the report and I found it a little confusing in terms of the why, the change in the structure. And I appreciate there was a list of the pro reasons why, but no sort of pros and cons listed here. So I do have some general questions and a few specific questions. But perhaps is it possible to do a quick overview of the pros and cons of these two approaches? Because I appreciate that there's about 50-50 split in the province. The pros I see here seem to be more administrative than they are directed at helping people have access to voting and to have accuracy of voting lists. So if I can maybe just get that from the staff. Thank you. Through your chair.
Through the chair. Yeah, so one of the things that when I was doing a little bit of research on the different approaches that we could use, I found was that when you've got any sort of change, so you have to be registered on the provincial voters list 52 days in advance. If you are not registered by that time, you are not included. You have to do same-day registration anyways. So if you have any change to that registration, like you've changed your address or changed your name, or maybe there's somebody has passed away, these are all things that need to be changed throughout the process. Maybe not that, if you require a change to your registration, you then have to do that on site at the voting location. So you're having to produce those identification, fill in the declarations, all that sort of stuff. You're having to do it anyways. And so this was a way for us to streamline the process for election officials. And what we had done was gone out and asked some other neighboring municipalities that use this system whether they found that there was a delay in processing voters at the actual polling stations, and what they determined was that no, they didn't see that. They had a very efficient process of getting the identification from the voters, transcribing that into the voting books, and then the other election staff is there explaining the ballot, and they were able to process people very quickly to get them to vote.
Okay, thank you. It always seems to me a better process to take things that are, pre-written and you're verifying things as opposed to transcribing them. If you're transcribing every single one, errors creep into it no matter what happens with that. And I would appreciate that you can do that with a process, but I'm not sure what the plan is right now for outside polling stations, but I know in previous elections, last election as an example, there was 20% of voters voted in early election, and even more than that, not more than 20%, but an additional number of people who voted in special voting or absentee voting. And so I would think you would have to have similar staffing and to sort of create that process as part of that. Does that cause any concerns here? If we're going to have, I mean, ideally we'd like to have as many polling opportunities as possible out into the nursing homes, up at university, all these places, and just having this as a manual process seems cumbersome a little bit, and that we have to transcribe them and bring back. But I'll just ask that question of you.
Sure. Through the chair, one of the other things that was a consideration was that we don't have to preserve the privacy of the information that's in the contained in that voters list because we're not. It's not going out for review. It's all we're doing is transcribing the information, getting the person to sign it. It's also a cost savings for the municipality in terms of printing those hard copy of books. If we use the provincial voters list and somebody challenges their personal information being included in that, we then have to maintain 2 separate voters list books. Then we have to deal with the storage and the destruction and all of those pieces with it. The other issue that is of some concern is that the provincial voters list boundaries don't necessarily align with our local boundaries, and so there's a lot of manipulation of that information that has to be done prior to actually producing those voters lists as well, which is a considerable undertaking.
Okay, and I guess, sorry if I may continue, the budget, I think this year about $20,000, $25,000 or something for the provincial. So is this a cost savings issue item for? Again, I'm seeing it sort of weighted 2 different ways. One is up front, where you curate the list and make it accurate, or one that you do it at the day of, and if we know which is the better balance here. Is there actually a cost savings attached to this?
Well, there is, in terms of not actually having to, I mean, the books that we print are large. We have to print multiples of them. So it's not one voter's book per polling station. It's multiples at the tables to help process the voters that are coming in to receive a ballot.
Okay, and it's been a while since we've had an election, so my memory's a little bit fuzzy on this. I remember last time the candidates at the closing of the nominations would get that voters list so that everybody had access to the same information on the piece. And as I recall, maybe not in municipal so much, but there have been in provincial at least the scrutineers that go and look over to oversee that, and that's done by looking at the paper input. So is it eliminating the paper? That's how you're getting rid of the books, because obviously if you're writing them, you still need to have books. So I'm just trying to get my head around what the process would actually look like with this change.
Through the chair, so I'm not sure that I completely understand your question.
Question number 1 is the voters list not going to be made available to the candidates in the election? Number 2, is the process completely electronic on screens, and does that eliminate the ability for scrutineers to oversee?
Thank you. No, so in answer to the first question, no, there would be no voters list available to the candidates. But what that means is that anybody can register on the day of the election, so everyone is a potential voter. And no, everything wouldn't be electronic, because we wouldn't be able to implement the technology required for that and still maintain that cost savings.
Okay, just so I'm clear, so we still have to have large books that they just get written into instead of printing them. Okay, I guess I'm trying to understand the rationale here for this outside of just administrative benefit. Change, I think it's a good chance for us to kind of consider the merits of this. I mean, I went to the Elections Canada just to try and learn about the different systems, and I was having a very hard time understanding the difference between them. But I did note that they say that, that the province and the federal government make a very strong effort to create accurate and up-to-date voters list. They claim a 92.7% accuracy of all voters. I'm assuming probably not all of those people come out to vote, so it's a pretty small percentage of modifications. And you said that it enables anybody up to the day of voting can still register, but that's possible under the current system as well, as I understand it. Okay. And under the Canadian Elections Act, they do provide the voters list to candidates, so that's only then for provincial and federal, not for municipal in this case, if we choose to go down this path. Okay, I'm not sure I entirely agree with all these projected changes, but I'll listen to the rest of the conversation.
Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Yeah, so
Councillor
I'm a
Zelko.
bit miffed as well about not receiving a list of voters prior to the election. I mean, that's something that I think as a candidate you can utilize in a very good way, and that really helps, I think. So I have a couple of questions. Number one, how many people opted out of having their information shared in Oak Bay on the last election? Do you know how many?
Through the chair, so I don't have that information because, of course, we destroy the election information within the timelines prescribed.
Okay, so I mean, I can't imagine it was a huge amount, but, and then were there any reported issues of, I have to think about this question, so just give me a second. You can go on to somebody else.
Okay. Councillor Zelko, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very glad we're having a chance to pick this apart because I didn't realize it was such a large change from a candidate's perspective. It sounds to me, and I want to confirm this for the first question for staff, is the difference in cost, the financial impact, the fundamental difference between the current system and the proposed system is just $2,500. Is that really what we're talking about here? Plus staff time.
Through the chair, that's what we have budgeted, but that doesn't take, as I said, into consideration the staff time, and that's not just staff time in admin. That's multiple departments that would have to be working on that to produce an accurate voters list.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, I got to say that from a perspective of wanting to make things relatively easy for the next council to run, I must say that just reflecting on my needs as a first-term councillor, receiving that voters list 30 days ahead of the election helped me get elected. If I didn't have that list, I'm not sure I actually could have gotten elected. So for me, that was an absolutely essential resource. So from a place of pay it forward, I have no problems paying an extra $2,500 and asking staff to maintain a list or update, a list of that's been received from the province, and continue the process that we have today. I think that's perfectly reasonable perspective, number one. The second reason why I want to maintain the current system is I'm a genealogist. And one of the things I appreciate as a genealogist is having lists left behind. I understand from a privacy perspective certain things have to be destroyed. But quite often, things are left behind. And 100 years later, those discovered lists, maybe they should have been destroyed, but thank goodness sometimes they aren't. Because 100 years later, I'm able to find long-lost relatives in those lists. And if we don't even create the lists, then I'm going to be making it I don't want to participate in making it extremely difficult for my genealogist colleagues to come. So for the second reason of genealogy, I'd like to see this list continue. Yeah, so I will not be supporting this change. I like our system. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a question. In the 13 municipalities in the CRD, who's chosen to go in which direction? Do we know? Because I see some statistics in your report, but they're kind of generalized through the provincial. Have you done any survey of local approaches?
Your Worship, I know that View Royal has been doing this for several years, and
this meaning the new approach.
yeah, they've been doing the same-day registration for voters for several years, and have been very successful with it. This seems to me to be something that is more effective in a smaller municipality. A lot of the larger municipalities like City of Victoria or District of Saanich are using the voter books because they have such a volume of people coming through. It just is more efficient for them than trying to record at 30 different locations all of the information that's required and checking all of those additional pieces. They've also got additional staff resources to help pull this administratively together in advance.
But you just mentioned one of the little, or the smaller municipalities. You know what's like in some of the others?
So, Your Worship, maybe I'll jump in here. You know, at the end of the day, the difference between these two systems is the fact that elected officials are going to get a list of electors, to be very honest. The process when you come in to register, it's not going to take you more time if there's a voters list or if it's same-day registration. And Councillor Zelka mentioned this, and he's correct. If we went with a same-day registration, there would not be a voters list available to candidates. Right now, you would be entitled to one of those, and to be clear, you can only use that for the purpose of the election. So that is really the big difference. There's no doubt that, in my opinion, that training your election staff, it's simpler to just have people come in on the same day. Here's your form, fill it out. Blah, blah. People expect to show their identification like they do in provincial and federal elections. However, you know what? Really, it's a philosophical kind of decision for council. If you want to maintain the voters list like we have in the past, we can do that, and we'll just have to figure out how we accommodate that into our schedule, etc.
Thank you. Now, back to you, Councillor Braithwaite. Are you ready with the
Yeah,
points?
so I guess I have two questions, I think. My first question would be, through you, Chair, how many reported issues were there of accuracy or of non-accuracy, I guess, on the provincial list? Do you have any idea? I mean, because that might make a difference if there was a lot of inaccuracy on the provincial list.
Through the chair, it's for us, it is manipulating that data so that we have the correct boundaries. And so if we were to make an error on that and allow someone to vote out of district, we would have a challenge on our hands. So in terms of numbers of inaccuracies, I don't have that information at hand. As I said, we destroy that information as per the required schedule, and I'm sorry, I don't have the information.
I guess
I can just jump in there maybe. So the vast majority of municipalities wouldn't even do that work unless they found themselves in an election that was really close. And that's normally the way that would happen. And what they do is prepare what they would call a voted list, where they would actually work, and it's very labor intensive to go and compare all of the voting lists to make sure that someone hasn't voted in the same time. So you haven't, voted at different polling stations and had their name scraped off at different things. But normally that wouldn't occur unless you found yourself in a very close election, and your chief election officer would probably say, "Wow, this is really close. We should do this voted list." I can say in local government elections in BC, finding any type of times when people have voted more than once is incredibly rare.
And I guess I just to follow up on the boundary issue that you're talking about, I mean, our boundary doesn't change. So does that not mean that So I guess I'm not understanding why there's an issue with the boundaries. Like, wouldn't that be a list that would follow through from year to year to year?
Through the chair, so the provincial voters list that comes, it reflects the electoral districts for the province, which is different from our municipalities.
I gotcha, yeah, okay. And then my final question would be, and you might have touched on this, Mr. Jones, but wouldn't there be a bit of an increase in funds that we would have to spend to educate the public around this change in how we're managing things? Or would you not foresee any increase in that whatsoever?
I would not foresee an increase in that, to be honest. But you know what? If council feels more comfortable with this is the way we've done things in the past and feel that this is what the electorate is used to and would prefer, that's something that you guys can do. We're putting this option out in front of you and leaving it to you.
Thank you. And I mean, I kind of feel the same as some others that sit around the table, and that I like to have that voters list in my hand. And so, unfortunately, great report, but I don't think I can support it. I think I would like to see things stay the way they were in the past, because for myself and for other people who may consider running, I think it really helps them. So,
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Zelka again, please, and Murdoch, and then Croft.
Thank you, Chair. Well, from the place of being well managed and well governed, you know, I'm all for red tape reduction, but in this case, it just seems a bit much. I have no problems with the work that's being done today, and I don't see why it has to change at all. So actually, from a place of being well managed and well governed, I will not be supporting this. Or if the motion is to simply receive for information, which I hope it will be, that's what I'll be supporting. Thank you.
I think we do have a motion on the floor, first, second, and third reading. So if you want, pardon me? We haven't taken a vote, but the motion was for first, second, and third reading, Ms. Hopkins. So if we don't want to proceed, then it's to defeat at this point. Councillor Murdoch, then Councillor Croft, and Murdoch.
Through the chair. So I just had a couple of little questions. One, the provincial list. The province can't provide us with a list for Oak Bay. They can't. You know, it's electronic. Can't they do a search by how we're going to do it, or they just won't do it? That's my first question.
Through the chair, no, they don't provide something that is specific to Oak Bay. That's something that we have to do. We have to extract that data, manipulate it, and then ensure the accuracy.
Okay, and then the second thing around cost, if in fact there's a cost to the municipality now, is that cost when you move it to on election day? Isn't that paid then by BC Elections? So we pay it either way. Is that correct?
Through the chair, so that the cost is for printing the physical books, and so however many books that we print will dictate that cost. So that's not something that's covered by Elections BC.
Okay. No, what I meant is that on election day, people are coming in and filling out forms, which might take more time, but you have election representatives sitting there taking that information. So there's no that's where the cost savings comes into the municipality. There's no additional cost, because there seemed to be some idea that I heard around the table there might have been an additional cost. But the savings is in fact the savings that you don't have to produce the books.
Through the chair, that's
okay,
correct.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murdoch, please.
Thank you, through Chair. So I guess the only other question I would have is just in terms of validation of data. One of the things that gets done on the national and provincial rules, of course, is verification of the data, but they do check things like there's some criteria required. Have you been a resident of BC for 6 months? Do you own property? And those things are checked against their database and maintained as validity in there, so the information is accurate. Is that work that would be done then to check that against provincial rules to ensure that, or is that just entirely a declaration made by the person and the actual technical thing? Oh, I think I've been here for 6 months, but I may have been here for 5. Like, where does that responsibility fall down?
Through the chair, on the day of the election, that's something that voters are asked. They have to make a declaration that they meet all of the requirements, and so they are making a solemn declaration that they are eligible to vote.
Okay, thank you. And I think the other thing I think speak in favor of keeping it the way it is that hard work you do of parsing the boundaries. There's people who don't actually know where they live on the boundaries of Oak Bay. It's unfortunate but true. There's lines that go through properties that belong to both. It wanders on both sides of Foul Bay Road. There's a few places that aren't entirely clear, and I think it might be helpful for us to have a fairly clear list at the time so people are declaring in the right place. So yeah, I have a hard time as it is right now to support this piece. Thank you.
Councillor Croft, and then I think we'll call the vote. Thank you.
I just had one other question. The procedure here, because there is a section in here that has to be dealt with, and that's the general voting day to be amended from November with October. So there's a section here that has to be dealt with. Do we defeat the motion and then just move that one first section? Or can we just amend this motion and remove sections 2 and 3 and go forward?
Mr. Jones, what's your suggestion? As to the best
Your
way?
worship, I'm maybe trying to determine the future, but my sense is that council wants to keep things the way they are. So if in fact that's the case, then whoever moved the motion might want to withdraw it, and then we could just deal with the date. That's the sense I'm getting. I could be incorrect.
Okay. We can withdraw it. We would need unanimous consent to do that because it is a motion that belongs to council now. So is there a unanimous consent to withdraw the motion? Any objections? Seeing no objections, the motion is withdrawn. Now, do you wish Councillor Croft to make the motion? Let's do it this way here. Let's pass it for a first time. Second time, we'll amend it to remove that on second reading. Sure. And then we'll pass third reading, if that's okay with everybody. Do you see what we're going to do? Okay, so move first reading.
I'll move first reading.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Now, move second reading.
Move second reading.
And then we would
Seconded.
move an amendment to the second reading, Mr. Jones?
Your worship, yes.
Okay.
Move the amendment as discussed.
Okay, move second reading as amended then.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is to move the second reading as amended to remove the portion of the change we don't want to proceed with, and then keep the other portion. Yes, Councillor Zelka, it's moved and seconded with the amended bylaw. Okay,
So
go ahead.
I just want to make sure that the amendment basically strikes element 2 and element 3 from the bylaw 4713. So only element 1 proceeds. Is that true? Is that what we're voting on?
That is.
Your worship, yes, correct.
That is correct.
It's going to be the date is the amendment.
Yep, thank you. Now, discussion on the amended bylaw. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Third reading, please, of the amended bylaw.
Move third reading.
Seconded.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you very much.
Move adjournment.
Well, hang on. Oh,
Hang
no,
on. Don't move adjournment. I need to go
Oh,
for the
no,
fire.
we've done that. Sorry, yeah, you're right. Now it's adjournment time. Thank
Move
you.
adjourn to go for a fire.
Yeah, you still got an hour and 16 minutes. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.